deal with forces you can't possibly comprehend.
You are now tuning in to the Going North podcast with your host, best-selling author, professional speaker, and member of the John Maxwell team, Dominic Dom Brightman. And every Monday and Thursday, we're going to hear the voice of a different author sharing their gifts, stories, and expertise to help you charge forward in life. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Going North podcast, we're bringing some fabulous humans from across the globe. Today's no different. Yeah, cool, again, today's different. One of the most awesome humans I know on the planet by the name of Mike Sheila helped me get a head start with getting some extra guests on my show. And it's been 3 years and counting since that magical day. And my man is still supplying me with some super special, awesome humans. And this one right here is in Maryland. This wonderful lady right here is a ball of passion and anything of interest. This wonderful lady learns all that she can and holds herself accountable to see it through. And this helped her to keep her sober since the age of 18. My goodness, folks. Freaking 1 year of staying sober. Gotta love it, folks. And it helped her to navigate the hell of anorexia and bulimia, which is the Addict and Alison explores. And even more the magical bio as we're covering addict of all kinds. You heard that right, folks, of all kinds. This fabulous lady right here intends to smash the myths that surround both addiction and recovery as well. So let's give it up for the fabulous AH herself, Miss Alison Haase. How you doing today, ma'am?
I am wonderful. Thanks to that introduction. Thank you.
Ah, yeah, that's right. With a big old W for the Wonder Woman swag, right?
I like it. I can wear that. I'll take it.
Ah, there we go. Take with both arms and legs if you have to. It's really interesting because it's like my man Mike shot me a message and gratitude to him too, and did a Google search, and I'm like, wait a second, why is all these bikini photos popping up? It's like, oh, shoot, freaking for a bodybuilder. Like, all right, like chick is cut. All right, there we go.
I've lived many lives, as I say. I've lived many lives. Makes it interesting. It keeps life interesting, and I have a few stories, so that never hurts.
There you go, a lady of many stories and talents. Well, as you know, I probably forgot 75% of all that Alison does. Heck, maybe even 99% of it. So mind filling in any cavities I may have missed about you?
Of course, and I'll try not to find any additional while we're talking, but you never know. So The Addict in Aisle 7 is my story, recently published, available on Amazon, and it is a walkthrough of the ins and outs of addiction and recovery. I know for me personally, I had a lot of stigmas in my mind about what both looked like. I was very young when I got sober. I was 18. I'm now 35. I am so very grateful to say that I have not had a drink or a drug since I was 18, but I had other things and afflictions and pains along the way. And I know bulimia, anorexia, recovery from an eating disorder, or anything like it is not a sexy topic. It's not talked about often. And I think there are a lot of people out in the world that suffer, and whether you identify as something with an ick or an ism on the end of it doesn't really matter. I think as humans, we're dying for connection, and we're constantly seeking something outside of ourselves to find it. And I really just felt indebted to share in a way that hopefully one other person could relate to and understand, so that I may help just shine the light, right? Shine the light, because I know addiction is shameful, it's isolating, and I lived that life for a long, long time. And if it wasn't for someone else shining the light for me, then I wouldn't be here right now. I really believe that. And, of course, you mentioned the bodybuilding. I go into that in my book. I've done a lot of different things over my short little time here on Earth, and my book touches on it. But, I got sober at 18. I was born and raised in Baltimore County, Maryland. And I was a diehard horse girl from the age of 3. No one knows to this day where that came from. I had to have my hands on a pony, My Little Ponies, Breyer horses, which are entirely too expensive, essentially plastic dolls that are super breakable. And I started riding when I was 3. And by the time I was 10, I was blessed enough to get a pony of my own. And that became my full-time sport. And I pursued it exhaustively into a business at 20. I went to school in Westchester, Pennsylvania. And so, my 18 to 20, when I first got sober, was spent in college, getting out of there as fast as I could, not because I don't like to be smart or educated, but if it's not on something that I'm really interested in, I'm not going to hang in there. So I hung in there long enough to get a major, and off I went, started my own business. So I have my entrepreneurship as a background. Lived in Pennsylvania for 12 years, came back to Maryland about 5 years ago, I think it is now, in part because my mom has MS, and I wanted to be able to care for her when the need and ask came, and just be closer. It was time. It was time to come back, and left the horse world, sold my business, hung up my boots. Officially don't ride anymore, pretend I don't know anything about horses for the most part. And, went from there to car sales and bodybuilding, which is, the context for that. And then eventually found myself in my father's businesses, helping him. And we'll just suffice it to say, dad is best as dad, not boss and dad. I love him dearly as my father, but I don't want him as my employer. And then I was recruited into my current day job, which is a business performance advisor at Insperity. But all those things aside, in the background undercurrent is my recovery. And I really wouldn't be available as an employee or as a daughter, as a sister, as a girlfriend, a friend, if it wasn't for the principles that I am applying in all of my affairs. And that's, why I wanted to write the book also, because I look pretty normal, right, on the outside, and you'd have no idea what went on behind the scenes. And I think that's true for all of us, right? I think we all have things going on behind the scenes. Some people talk about it, some people don't. And I took the risk of being really exposed and vulnerable to see if I could help somebody else. So there are some cavities for you. Maybe not. They probably don't need filling, so I think we're okay.
Oh man, gotta love it, gotta love it. My goodness, a lady of many lives and far from 40th. That's what I'm talking about. So my goodness, so horse riding, so got that equestrian swag going on, and the bodybuilding. And I guess it all stemmed from just like the low body image, because I read part of your book and it mentioned like a comment someone made about your backside, and I'm like, man, like darn, if only she was in a different community. Like that's like an asset, especially nowadays. No pun intended.
Yes, I do know that. And, it's hard to say where or why, right? I think why can be a dangerous topic to dig into, simply because I know for me, I can get paralyzed by why and exhaust myself analyzing instead of just moving forward. And I know for me, perhaps the addict seed was planted in my body, and it's just part of my makeup. So I am predisposed to finding things to do to excess that make me feel differently than I would without them. I think body preoccupation is not unique to women, although I think it is more normal for women, right? I think it's more typical. And I hate blaming anything or anyone, but I think society has had a lot of attention driven toward bodies and what it means to have one, and what it means to have one that looks a certain way. And for me, I know in the past it's been a method of control and a method of comfort and a support. And when the rest of my life is in shambles, I can at least go back to the body and attempt to change that, be it through food or exercise or not eating, right? So I think a lot of people with eating disorders, it at the end, when you get into recovery, if you are blessed enough to do so, you find that it doesn't have anything to do with your body so much as just an inability to live life on life's terms. And so I think the horse riding was a blessing for me. It protected me from very severe drug addiction at a very young age, and was enough for me to hang on to get sober, right? A lot of people, one, don't get sober young. They haven't had enough loss yet, or have lost so much that they don't have anything to get sober for, really. And I tell people all the time, your reason for getting well doesn't matter. Your reason for staying well changed. So if you show up and put in the effort and the work and the belief one day at a time, you will eventually want to stay that way for you, but you don't have to come because of you. You can come for whatever external reason there is. And I started that because of the horses, because I love them more than I love me. So I'm really grateful for that. And the bodybuilding really, I have a very competitive side. I'm a hustler, I'm an achiever, I'm a doer, and I also love to express myself athletically. And bodybuilding came after horses, and I had competed horses my entire life very seriously. And it was like, well, now what? And I had a friend that suggested, she said I'd be perfect, which in the moment I thought, okay, that just means I'm crazy, right? I can follow a piece of paper perfectly. And not to say, this is not to shit on bodybuilders, right? I have friends that compete. They are wonderful. They're moms. They're balanced women. That is not my story, right? If it was, I'd probably still be doing it. But for me, it was a very extreme way to manage my body and have something to do and focus on and control. And I am very, very directions oriented. I love to-do lists. I love completing things. I love validation, right? So you give me, a coach gave me a piece of paper with a bunch of training exercises and dates and times and food to eat. And I'm like, I got it, A++. I won't deviate an inch. And I didn't. And so, you get applauded for that. But for someone that already had a very skewed version of self and body, it was a really slippery slope and dangerous trap for me that lasted a couple years. Some crazy photos, as you've seen. Thank you, Google. But, inevitably led me to near my end, as we'll say. And I'm glad. I learned a lot. And I got to the end faster, I think, because of bodybuilding. But it was not a manageable way of life for me. We'll say that.
I got you. Yeah, because I'm not an expert on bodybuilding, but I listen to past interviews of bodybuilders and heck, even watched the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary from like decades ago. And it's really interesting, the world of bodybuilding, like how crazy it can be. Like some folks that may be doing juicing, some may even be able to sustain the natural route to progress. And the fact that there's still a showmanship, or in this case, showwomanship aspect to it, too, that folks have to still remember to keep in mind with that. So
Oh
really,
my gosh, it is you are the dog and the pony, right, at the show. Like, quite literally, it is, you are blinged out, you are spray tanned, you look normal in the context, but if you step out into daylight, you are getting looked at and not necessarily positively. I mean, 5 coats of spray tan, because when you're on stage, there's lights shining down on you that are going to bleach you out. So the more definition you want visible, the darker you have to be so that when the lights shine down on you, it's still visible. And so you are literally spray painted to death. It's a huge undertaking the night before. I have short hair now. At the time I didn't, but I still put in hair extensions that went down to my butt. And my neck hurt because my hair was so heavy. And you're the night before, you're not fed, you're dehydrated, so you're not sleeping. And it's a ride. It's a ride. I'm sure there are ways to do it that are different than what I experienced. But my nails were done. I had shiny jewelry everywhere. Your suit is the size of a mouse, literally a mouse for your computer. They told me to buy a practice suit, and I didn't really understand why. And I'm so glad that they did, because the first time I put this little thing on in my house by myself, I was embarrassed. That's how little it covers. And I glued it on at the show. We got Pep Boys spray on glue. Just imagine coming off, right? But you can't be up there picking your suit, right, on stage. That's just got to stay in place. So we glued it on. It's got bling on it. You've got drag queen makeup on. You look amazing, I guess. But yeah, it's something else. Vaseline on your teeth so you can keep your smile on when you're exhausted. And 5-inch stripper heels, and you strut across stage, and pose and hold. And you are right. It is a show. It is a show. And I don't miss that. Not for a second. Not for a second. But clearly I have lots of stories around it.
So you don't miss any of the poses?
Oh my gosh. It took years to undo knots in my side, because I would always turn to one side and contort myself because
Ew.
I'm not naturally a teeny tiny woman. I'm not by any means saying I'm large, but compared to what they were trying to get you to look like, which was a plastic Barbie doll, I don't look like that naturally. So you had to twist to death on stage and hold that pose as long as possible. So needless to say, you've got lower back cramps, you've got neck issues. So no. Am I giving it a good run for its money? No, don't miss it. Don't miss it.
Gotta love the brutal honesty. Definitely gotta love it.
I'm good for
So
that.
that's right. And she mixes it with sprinkles too.
I do. I do.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So my goodness. So with all that experience bodybuilding and really what really was the next step? Is that what led you to become like a professional business analyst afterwards in that little window of time in between, or was it something else in between?
Yeah, so I went from car sales and bodybuilding. So my last day in Pennsylvania was also my last bodybuilding show. I didn't know that was going to be the case, but August 1st of 2015, I stepped foot off stage and then drove to Maryland that night where I began my journey here. And because I did not do bodybuilding naturally, I had a huge let down physically, hormonally after the fact. And I really went through, I would say, puberty at like 30 for a good year or two, right? Only I'm 30, so I know what's happening, but I can't control it. When you're young, you're like, what's happening? Like, you don't know any different, right? You're just getting thrown at the wall and you just go with it. But when you're old enough to emotionally and intellectually understand what's happening, but not be able to control it, it was really unnerving to say the least. And so, I came back to Maryland, and I think no longer being in an environment that I was used to, although I'm from here, I was gone for 12 years. So I had built up my entire network in Pennsylvania, and my friends were in Pennsylvania. I had always worked in Pennsylvania, and my only memories of Maryland were as a drunken high kid going back and forth, running around under my parents' house and riding horses. And so I had to start over. I really had to start over. And I think because I didn't have my normal people around me, I just bottomed out when I got here. And combine that with the effects of the bodybuilding and competing and just the dieting aspect alone, especially again because I'm not normal in that regard. So I had severe swings up and down with following my scripted diet on paper for the shows and then not being able to stop eating after for days on end. It was really destructive, and it was emotionally, spiritually, and physically destructive. And so I think it probably took 2 years to kind of find myself in the middle a little bit, just to come out of the bodybuilding and concede that that's not the sport for me. It is not where I want to be in my life. I wasn't having fun. I'm sure you can imagine why. But I wasn't functional, right? I wasn't doing anything exciting per se. And so I went from car sales professionally to then working for my father. He has a couple businesses, and I helped get one off the ground and was working for him. And I got into obstacle course racing more seriously because, again, I can't do anything at half mass. I've got to make it a thing. So that was actually very productive for me because you can't run up mountains and carry heavy things without eating. You can't be on a rigid diet and perform athletically. At least I can't. My body doesn't appreciate me when I do that energetically. So, I kind of changed gears and got healthier around sport and started having fun again. And, then got really serious about my recovery from my compulsive eating and bulimia. In the past, I was very severely bulimic. I would throw up mid-sentence while talking involuntarily. I would not eat all day because I knew I would eat all night. And I did that for years, and I really never envisioned not doing that. And, bodybuilding gave me a little bit of a reprieve only because I was doing something with such intense focus. But then when I came back here and I stopped bodybuilding, I was kind of like, I don't know what to do. And I still didn't want to admit that I needed help in that department because I've already admitted I'm an alcoholic and an addict. I'm already doing the deal with that. why do I have to admit that something else is wrong with me? And for God's sake, why is something else wrong with me, right? I just felt like this really fundamentally flawed and broken human being. And the truth is that that is the first step in admitting who we are. And, in that admission, there is so much freedom. I'd been fighting for so many years to try and figure it out on my own. And it just wasn't working anymore. And so I was working for Dad for a couple years, trying to figure out myself with my food and my body at the same time, and eventually landed almost simultaneously. I left my dad's organization and I had about a month off. And that's kind of actually the same time, I think within 6 months, 9 months of me, starting to write this book, because I found recovery from my eating disorder, and I got really stable and I got really inspired. I was interviewed by someone to be in his book about people in recovery, just all walks of life, everyone from who are you, like me, right? No one knows who I am, to like really famous people. And I was really honored, and I was just sharing my story like I am now. And he's like, you got to put this on paper. And I guess that's what I was called to do. I feel very gifted verbally. And so I'm able to write well, and it's cathartic. I can't paint. I definitely can't sing, but I can write. And I started writing. And so it all kind of happened with, I was recruited into Insperity, where I am now as a business performance advisor. And that's a very fancy name for sales, but we are more consultative in nature. We help businesses with HR and anything relating to HR, which is a whole nother podcast that I actually started doing with Mike, as you know, recently. We have a business podcast together, which I'm super excited about because I am passionate about it, but it's a beautiful way to feed myself every day, and have a lot of freedoms that I haven't otherwise experienced professionally. But yeah, that's where I went. I went from Pennsylvania bodybuilding mess, car sales, to Maryland in between, and then getting better. And now 3 years later, things are really different. By no means are they perfect, right? I think that's the reality that I want to paint and share, and I write about, and I blog about. It's not like I decided one day that I was never going to treat myself poorly again or engage in harmful behaviors, right? It's like every day I have to make that choice and surround myself with an army of support that understands, and really work diligently on behaviors that are different, because sometimes the thoughts are the same. It's what we do that actually matters. So, it's a nonstop ride for sure, but it's been a really cool one, and certainly one that I didn't envision landing to be where I am now.
Sweet. Well, congrats on 17 years clean indeed, and
Thank you.
all the extra victories that have been happening in between. Yes, indeed.
Thank you. Thank you. It's wild.
That's right. Some wild child swag. That's what I'm talking about.
You're decorating me. I like it. We got Wonder Woman. We got the bodybuilder. We got, yeah, I like it. I like it.
That's right. We got the amazing Allison. That's right. The double A yourself. There we go. Amazing and adventurous. Now you're AAA battery.
That's right. There we go. Last forever.
That's right. Last forever. Energizer bunny swag.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Oh, and speaking of going, so what's really next for you that's really been keeping you going? Because there may be someone who may be going through their own addiction right now. So with all of those side quests and now what seems to be your main quest for the moment, what's really helped you to keep going and to really stay sober, not only from drugs, but eventually getting back to the point where you're able to appreciate your body more than before?
Now, it's a great question. And, I really just want to be of service. I want to be useful. I want to help someone, because there really was a long, dark period of time where I swore I was the only one that felt the way that I did. I was the only one that had the things going on in my life that I had. And like I said, I was fundamentally defective and broken. And so now I really am inspired to let other people know that that's not true, right? We are not alone, none of us. Somebody just has to be brave enough to talk about it. And somebody talked about it for me, and that gave me enough courage to start talking about it myself, and then it's passed forward. And so my intention and why I wrote the book is to do that, is to help people know they are not alone. There is certainly nothing to be ashamed of. I didn't choose this for myself, but I can now help other women from my experience, right? I have an experience that can benefit others and men. I don't want to single women out. I just relate to them more because I am one. But, I really just am impassioned by the idea of helping. And it's so interesting because recently some friends and I were talking, like, for me, a goal would be to not have a goal, right? Like, that would be monumental for Alice. Like, don't have a goal, just hang out for a minute and relax. Like, I've got discipline in spades. I've got things going on, happy to help share the wealth and the want and the energy. And, it's funny, my book was published and within a week I started writing another one. And it was like, hold on a second. Like, let's celebrate the fact that you just did something really hard and big and vulnerable and scary, and be there with it and see what happens with it. I don't really have an agenda per se, except if I can get this into the hands of someone that needs to hear it in plain English, curse a lot, it's super relatable, to know, like, okay, it's not going to be perfect forever, but it's not impossible. And it is so worth it. Like, that's what I want to share. And, talking about being an athlete and in recovery from an eating disorder, I know for me personally, I was hung on the idea that if I would stop caring about my body and become fat and lazy if I resigned to the fact that I needed help. And I can tell you that that is not true, right? I have not experienced that even a little bit. And just, you can thrive however you choose to thrive and find joy. What really matters is your intention and what you do. And that's really where I'm at now. I have a blog and I write just kind of off the cuff what comes up. I try and get out there once a week, every 10 days, and just talk about life, right? Real life stuff from my perspective. And, have this book out where, no, you're not the only one. And I feel indebted to the people that helped me get this far and continue to support me. And like I said, I want to pay it forward.
There you go. That's right. Paying it forward indeed. And you said something that really caught my ears, and it's something that I've noticed that a lot of high performers tend to do that we're guilty of, is not really celebrating our victories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, I am very sincere when I say a goal would be to not have a goal, right? Like, of course, I went from bodybuilding to obstacle course racing, and I am not fast. Like, I'm not like this, I'm not a turtle, but I am not fast. There are people that are legitimately fast. I am not one of them, but I can go for a very long time. And I found it fascinating to be able to do that. And so last year in late September, I flew out to Lake Tahoe and I actually won an ultra obstacle course race, which was 31 miles at the old Olympic site in Lake Tahoe. So mountainous, 10,000 feet of elevation, with 70 obstacles. And a month later, broke my leg, right? Talk about black and white, like, sit your ass down, stop doing and pursuing. Because it was like, okay, now what, right? I achieved this huge thing. I really didn't think I could. Never tackled anything near that in my life. I ran a marathon once because someone asked me to, and I was like, whatever, fine. And I've done some hard things, but that particular event was mind-numbingly difficult. I was out there for 9.5 hours, and it was snowing. It was just crazy. It's like that happened, and then exactly, it's like, now what? So, right, my plan was to start doing the deal. Like, we're going to do this. I'm good enough at this length, right? I'm too slow for short stuff, but at this length, I'm good. And the universe was like, actually, I think you should sit it out for a while and understand that there's more to life than constantly pursuing the next thing. Because I do, and I don't think this is because I'm an addict. I think as humans, we tend to just feel like we need to fill in the blank, right? We need to prove our worth. We need to find something worth doing. We have to be passionate. We have to be driven. And all of those things are enormous blessings and assets. And I also have found for me that all of those blessings and assets can also be liabilities when overdone. And so I was going to start training harder, which is hard to imagine. And meanwhile, like, my poor boyfriend, right, and no social life. And I still do a lot of things at work. So eventually you run out of dots to put in buckets, right? There's only so much time and space in one's life. Like, something's got to give. And I guess breaking my leg was what had to give. And I couldn't walk for 3 months. It was my right leg. I couldn't drive. And I had to really figure out what I wanted, who I was, where I was, because I couldn't express myself physically. I couldn't even walk up and do my own laundry, right? I tried and I broke my beautiful porcelain trash basket because God forbid I like just do laundry. I was like, I'm going to put the trash can in the laundry bin and get it all done at once with one leg and crutches and stairs. And it just didn't work. Anyway, I let people do my laundry after that. But, I had 3 months in the winter pre-COVID. So I was primed for this home life we're living. I had 3 months of like, okay, so now what? Like, are you enough just being here, right? I had my job, thankfully, and it's a busy time of year in the fall for us. So I had that. I was writing and my book was on its way out. We were still editing. And I think it ended up being the most beautiful gift to me, which I hated in the beginning, right? Everyone's like, there's a lesson. And I'm like, I don't care what the lesson is. I don't want to learn it, right? Because it's like, maybe the lesson is that rock climbing is dangerous. And if you fall, you can get hurt, right? Because that's how I did it. I was bouldering. And, but they were right? Because I had to learn that I am enough without a trophy. I am enough without a certain body shape or size. I am enough if I'm not pursuing a big outlandish goal. And so here we are, 9 months post surgery. I had to have surgery and I am very much fit and active, but I'm having fun with it now. Like I don't feel like I have to prep for anything. Now, granted, COVID has blessed me. Race season was canceled. So I not only wasn't ready anyway, because it turns out you need a lot of work to come back from not walking for 3 months and having a plate and 8 screws in your ankle. But, like the race season is canceled. So like the universe has conspired in my favor. It's like leg breaks, pandemic hits. What are you going to do? And, there's a lot of people around me that are kind of jonesing and going crazy for racing and competition. And I'm kind of in this little bubble where I'm like, thank God, I don't have to do anything if I don't want to. And I'm like, well, I get to see friends again and my family and hang out and do nothing on Friday or maybe Saturday if I don't want to. And it's this really beautiful phase that I'm in. And it's just, I feel like I'm learning how to live in the gray. I'm learning how to live in the pause in between. And I'm celebrating the fact that I'm sober and I'm well and I have a message that people want to hear. Every time I'm like, I don't feel like, because promoting a book is hard. I know you know that, right? And no one's doing it for me, right? No one's doing it for me. And it's tiring. And I'm a very authentic person. So it feels funny and uncomfortable to be trying to sell me, right? But I keep coming back to if my intention is truly to help, then I will be guided in the right way. And I feel that way. But, I keep coming back to like, I don't really want to do this. It's a lot of work. Why haven't I just sold 1 million copies yet and been on billboards? And, then somebody sends me a private message like, thank you so much for what you're doing. I really understand and relate and I can't thank you enough. I'm like, okay, there's my gold card for today, right? I will keep doing this because it is helping and people are hearing. And, so yeah, to answer you in a very long-winded fashion, I am learning to celebrate what I've been given and gifted and chosen to pursue and have conversations like this, which are so fun, right? Because it helps me remember what it was like and what it could be like again and why I am pursuing this.
Oh, yeah. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Always the remembering factor. It is kind of interesting, especially since you're so driven. And I'm kind of the same way where it's like I'm so darn driven where I want to keep pushing forward without celebrating. And then it's like, oh, I'm sharing stories from book 1 and I'm still working on book 2. And that's like Allison of 2018. Like Allison 2020 is different. Like, darn it. It's like kind of strange.
Exactly. And just learning like you've done enough and it's okay to not do anything right now. It's hard.
Oh, yeah. Harder than 5 boulders. And all of Colorado. Just for the extra pun. That's right. Oh, man. Well, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. As the nonsense continues from oh, actually, no, my nonsense actually has been limited on this one. So that's actually
Oh,
probably good for you for the moment. I haven't even
okay.
heard the
I'll
tree
take it.
jokes. That's right. That's right. She's been spared, at least as far as we know. Well, at least as far as she knows, I think.
I'm hanging in there. It's been good. We're good. I'd let you know. Don't worry.
Oh, good. All righty. Good, good, good. So, with all of this magic, so what's next for you? You got this awesome podcast now, and then book two is going to be out, I guess, probably about a year from this recording, as I imagine. Like, heck, what are you going to be doing for book two? Because you did a biography for book one, so this is going to be like a fantasy romance novel, it's going to be self help.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how to make stuff up, so it definitely wouldn't be fantasy. I have no poker face, I have no poker mouth, like nothing about me is fake. So that would be a challenge for me. That would be a challenge for me. And it's the irony in self-help, and I know Brene Brown says this, but like you can't help yourself, even though like this book would probably be in the freaking self-help section. I feel like we need others to help. So I don't know. I know. So Mike Shalon and I started a business podcast, so totally unrelated to this, but I'm still helping others, and I'm still really passionate about business. And having been a business owner and then a salesperson and then a manager, I feel like I've worn all the hats required to sit across the table from just about anyone. And so he and I are doing this business podcast, and we're going to have it transcribed and turned into a book. So that might be my second. And like I said, it's the versatility I think is so appealing to me. And I just, I'm fascinated by people that know things about a lot of different topics. And I try and drill down into a few, right? So that I know a lot about a few things instead of I know little about everything. But that's a good question. And I also, my answer honestly is I don't know. And I'm learning to be okay with that answer, right? Like it is okay to not know. It's okay to not know where I'm headed or where I want to head, and to just kind of take a pause. I had started ferociously typing when this first came out a couple months ago. And I was going all over the place. It's like, do I talk more about the athletic side of this? Do I talk more about, and literally, I have no idea. And it's so funny because reading my own book, I'm like, oh my gosh, things are so different now than they were when I wrote this book. And I mean, not that they're
Yep.
not true, but like that you write from where you are, right? And so I was in a different place 2 years ago, hopefully. So reading it now is just so fascinating because I'm just so different. So yeah, great question. I'm not answering you because I don't know. I don't know.
Hey, it's good not to know. It shows honesty.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right indeed. And heck, I finally found the question that was in my head. So, out of curiosity, are you still a people pleaser?
That's a great question. I would say mostly no, but I have to like dig deep sometimes. So for me, a people pleaser is someone that says yes under any and all circumstances, right? Regardless of the detriment to self. So, if I am overtired, which happens quite easily, I'm an early bird. So I'm approaching my bedtime at 10 of 8 here, right? Eastern Standard. So, like but I know that about myself. So I know now, like, not to get into any complicated conversations or emotional conversations or have to answer anything difficult at the end of the day. And I try and sleep on it and come to it fresh the next day or the next morning. So I have learned how to say, let me get back to you instead of yes. Unless I know immediately, like, oh, hell yeah, I'm doing that, or no way ever. But for the most part, I've learned how to let me get back to you. But the key there is you have to get back to them. You can't just leave it open-ended. I hate that, right? People are like, let me get back to you. And then they never do. And I just feel so disrespected. So I'm very conscious of that and etiquette around it. I try really hard not to meddle with things that aren't mine, especially with family affairs, which I will not get into here. But like really learning like what's my business and what's not. Most things are not my business. I used to think everything was my business. So, finding the delicate balance around those pieces, but also for me, I'm very independent, dominant, self-sufficient. So I have to remember I'm not the only person in this house anymore. I'm not the only person in my relationships. And so I have to take into consideration other people's feelings and thoughts and wants. So, being available for them to weigh in also. So yeah, I'd say for the most part, no, but I'm not immune from that behavior at the same time.
Sweet. So anything else in addition to the wonderful wow, tongue-tied, mindset shift that really helped you to make this progress so far? Because there may also be people pleasers that are still out there. Heck, I'm still a recovering people pleaser myself. I'm finally letting my edge show nowadays more than ever. So
I hear you. I hear you. Something that I learned that was taught to me that I have held near is whenever I say no to me and yes to you, I'm saying no to both of us. And that, nobody loses when I say yes to me. And it is okay to have to change course, your commitment, whatever, if it truly isn't serving you. And so I used to bleed myself dry with overcommitting and doing too much and showing up everywhere and for everyone and everything because I couldn't say no, especially after I had already said yes. And I don't mean be a flake, right? You're not allowed like 5 minutes before you're just tired, you don't feel like going. Like that's not a really plausible reason in my book. But if you genuinely don't feel well or it's just not good for you to go somewhere but you've already said yes, it is okay to say no and change your mind. And that's been really hard for me because I was very much by the book, right? I'm very honest. And so I felt like I was being dishonest by going back on a commitment that I made. And so it really depends on the importance of it. But, also knowing like I'm not the most important person in the world. I like to think so most of the time, but it's just not true. And people will survive if I say no, like they really will. And the more I learn to honor myself, the easier it is to do that.
sweet. There you go. That's right. Honor yourself, folks. That's right. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You don't have to be the queen or king of everything, but definitely honor yourself. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you are 25 again, but this time in the current year of 2020 with no pandemic, what advice would you give to yourself?
Relax. It's all going to work out perfectly.
Sweet. Heck, that is so freaking true.
Right? I mean, like, I have to remind myself now, like, it's all going to be fine, right? I'm freaking out at work because deals aren't closing fast enough. Well, one, most of the world is unemployed and or out of business. So the fact that you're not and thriving is a big deal by itself. And the deals will close when they're supposed to close. I've got to be sensitive to other people's circumstances. And in the meantime, I do have everything that I need. I'm very well fed, clothed, showered, warm home with lights, happy dogs, right? So it's like I really am okay. And just the incessant worry about what it's going to be like when I'm a certain age and having to do things, for me, I still haven't been married, right? I'm 35. I'm in a very happy, almost 2-year long relationship. And I believe that it's going in that direction, but I can go down the rabbit hole of like, why not? What's wrong with me? When? But we want kids. I'm going to be, 1,000 at their high school graduation, right? And so like I can get down on myself because of what I think was supposed to have happened already. And the reality is I've accomplished some really cool things in my life by 35 that wouldn't have been possible if I did the family thing first. And by no means was I ready to be a mom prior to now, right? So like I really, 25-year-old Alison, I would have said, sit down, sweetheart, take a breath. It's going to be fine. Like it really is going to work out better than you can imagine. Just let it. And really just trust that everything is happening for me and us, not against me. It really is happening for me.
Ah, yeah, there you go. That's right. And don't worry about being 1,000 if the kids eventually show up. I hear that 40 is the new 20 these days.
There we go. That sounds fine. It's fine, truly. I couldn't even imagine yet. I bitch about it, but I couldn't actually imagine it. So we're good. It's all on time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because a lot of chicks over 40 taking care of themselves and killing it nowadays. I'm like, all right.
Yes.
Like, okay. All righty.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Woohoo. Well, for those who want to keep in magical contact with the amazing Allison herself, what's the best way for folks to reach out to you?
Yes. So I am on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is Alison E. Haase. So ALISONEHAASE. Facebook's first and last name, Alison Haase. And then I have a blog, iseektruths.com. Both are posted on my IG handle and Facebook. And my book's on Amazon. So, you could also Google me, right? And I'm sure it would pop up along with some bikini butt shots on stage with a spray tan, so it's all there. And some horse pictures too. So, I'm not lying about my history.
I wouldn't say worse pictures, although I haven't seen them all. I don't think I need to.
No,
Not in a bad or good way.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, don't want to be stalkers because that'll just be freaking creepy. So there you go, folks. Head over to the wonderful IGs. Follow the amazing Alice and head over to I Seek Truths. Keep track of her blog. Magical stuff appears new every week indeed. And I can even buy some copies of her magical book, folks. Her magical book. It's so freaking shiny. The Addict in Aisle 7, How She Met God and Herself Through Her Body, folks. Buy that book. It'll change your life forever. 1 quarter, 1 penny, 1 Benjamin at a time. Yes, indeed. So any parting words for the folks still listening, Allison?
Don't give up, right? Thank you, Dominic, for this opportunity to share. It really does help me the most. It reminds me of why I keep going when it's hard, and that nothing is really too big for any one of us to tackle. So, find me. There are plenty of people like me, so you are not alone.
How's it going, my friend? I'm glad you made it to the end. That shows that you really enjoyed what you heard and you are an uncommon finisher. Thanks for giving this show a listen. If you really want to help out the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone that you care about or someone that needs to hear this message because we want to spread this podcast around like butter on bread if that's your type of thing. And if it's not your type of thing, still spread it around anyway because good stuff needs to be shared with good people like yourself.